Welcome to the Haven Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders, owners, and professionals are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Hear from industry experts on everything from marketing, leadership, financing, and more. Brought to you by Haven, a co-working space where you can connect, create, and get stuff done.
Hi, I'm Nancy Sheed, your co-host for today's Haven Hubcast, and I am very, very, very excited to be speaking with Jen Gorin, who is the founder of Impact Growth Partners. Jen is going to be talking to us today about her business and how companies become B Corps. But a little background on Jen. Her company is identifying a need for businesses to streamline how they measure, improve, and communicate the good that they do. Jen leverages her traditional business experience, as we're going to hear, to lead best-in-class social and environmental impact consulting services. Jen, welcome to the Haven Hubcast.
Thanks so much, Nancy. It's great to meet you.
The Impact Growth Partners is a boutique consulting firm that works to expand social and environmental responsibility within the business community through B Corp certification. And Jen, as the founder, leverages her traditional business experience to lead best-in-class social and environmental impact consulting services. That sounds like a lot, Jen. Let's take a step backwards and walk us through all of this goodness that you're bringing to the world through business. What is a B Corp?
Well, many of you listening have probably heard of a B Corp. It's that B logo with a circle around it. You see it a lot when you're shopping at Whole Foods or you purchase Patagonia or Seventh Generation. There are actually 4,000 certified B Corps around the world, and that's only 1,700 in the US. I say only because it's a small but very rapidly growing movement. And what the B Corp certification is, it's almost like USDA organic to a food product. It is a certification that identifies companies that are operating in a good way across all elements, across governance, across how they interact with the community, how they treat their workers, how they treat the environment, and then overall what the mission of the company is. So it's really measuring companies against global standards to identify those that meet the highest standards of social and environmental impact. So it's a really prestigious certification to have, and it's very hard to achieve.
Wow. And Jen, how did you become a B Corp consultant? What path led you to this journey to be bringing goodness and the certification to the world on a grander scale?
Well, it certainly wasn't a direct path, and I would call it essentially a second career. Both after college and I got my MBA, I worked in more traditional business, most recently in investment banking. And when I was an investment banker, this was over 10 years ago, so a lot has changed since then, even within the banking community. But at the time, if someone had said something about triple bottom line or measuring impact, I would have said, oh, that's business is for profit. That leaves that to philanthropy and government. I have done a complete 180 since then. About 5 years ago, I was consulting on an impact investing firm. And that's when I realized what the role that business could really play in society. And it was through that process where I discovered B Corps. And it was even smaller than it is now then. But I realized they had established such a robust infrastructure that I thought was really important to the growth of impact businesses. And as the impact community grows, it's really important to be able to identify the companies that are really doing well against measurable standards. So for investors, consumers, employees, it's really an important tool for them to set themselves apart from other businesses. And as they can attract more customers, better employees, retain them, and as well as drive investment, hopefully those businesses can grow and continue to build the number of businesses that are impactful. And the other thing that's important about it is that even companies that don't achieve the certification, if they go through the process of taking what's called the B impact assessment, they inevitably make material changes to their business that is ultimately having a better impact on society and the environment. So for companies that may be interested in this and think, it's really not something that I could achieve, it's still worth going through the process, taking the assessment, which is a free tool on B Lab's website, and You may identify out of the couple of hundred questions you will receive, you may identify a handful of things where you can be impactful. But anyway, that's how I ended up with finding B Corp.
So, Jen, tell us, if companies are considering this B Corp certification process, what are the things they need to know or consider or think about, either before talking to you or when they might call and talk to you more about it?
So the process of becoming certified involves taking a really comprehensive online questionnaire that's tailored to the company size, the location, and the industry it's in. And you will receive around 200 questions that cover all areas of your business. As I mentioned, governance, community, customers, workers, and the environment. And so two things are important to note. One is that this process is free. So even if you think your company has no ability to achieve certification, or you really just want to explore what it's about, you can log on to beimpactassessment.net and create an account and take this assessment. You'll find it's incredibly detailed and incredibly cumbersome, which is why we help out as consultants. But it will give you an idea of what types of things they measure. So really, no matter at what point your business is, that's something that you can do. And then the other thing to be aware of is that the goal is to get to 80 points out of a potential of around 200. And that can come from a variety of those different areas. But some of them cover the operations of your business. So what you're doing specifically in terms of how you're paying your workers, what your benefits are, what you're doing environmentally, internally. But another aspect is what's called impact business model. So if you have a business that the natural outcome of your business has a positive impact on society, for example, solar panels have a natural positive environmental impact. So there will be an increased chance that a company that has that impact will achieve the right number of points, because you don't have to be as on top of everything operationally. But companies that, a web design business or a law firm or a company that sells a very traditional product, they can become certified also, but that's more driven by the operations.
Interesting. So it sounds like no matter where you are in the process, if this is something that's on your radar screen as a business or a business owner, taking this one step is just a great benchmark, no matter what happens beyond that benchmark. I mean, beyond kind of taking this test and seeing where you are in general, right?
Exactly. And the great thing about it is that even if you don't end up certified and you care about what you are doing as a business, this helps you identify ways that you can improve, whether there are many things that our clients that are even so mission driven that they have not thought about, whether it's a certain type of benefit to offer, or making sure that your employees are getting paid a living wage, or measuring your water usage and setting targets, or buying carbon offsets. There are hundreds of ideas, or, what bank you use. There are hundreds of ideas that have come from all of the sources that B Lab has used to come up with these questions that really help companies identify ways to have a positive impact on the world.
And you've mentioned, companies that I wouldn't traditionally think of that are, seeking B Corp status, web designers or, small businesses or storefronts. I'm in my brain, I'm thinking, do you need to be an environmental company, or you need to be a big, huge conglomerate? So tell me, are there certain companies that are more inclined to work with you or seek the B Corp status in terms of industries, or is it across the board?
Well, in terms of seeking B Corps, definitely the dominant sector is food and consumer packaged goods, because those companies, have the benefit, all the benefits that other companies have, but also the benefit of using that logo on a product that is distributed widely, that customers can identify. But it's also very prominent among the B2B community. So if you are working with other businesses, for example, if I want to hire someone to provide a service for my business, the first place I look is bcorporation.net, and it's find a B Corp. So I look to see if there's other B Corps doing what I want, what service I need, because I know that they meet certain standards.
Jen, one of the questions, we've gone from how people might be interested in this to taking the test, seeing where they are, figuring out if this is the path for them. If they decide they want to go through the certification and they need help, that's when they would call you, right? What stage does somebody know they need a consultant like you?
We start with companies at various points. Some just know they want to be certified. They know that it can be a daunting task. And so right away, they look for consultants and say, I want someone to help me with it, because there are resources through B Lab. They also can provide support via email, but there's no one really to walk you through the process at B Lab in a live sort of way. That's one end of the spectrum. Then we've worked with companies that have actually taken the assessment, not been happy with their score, or just come to a point where they aren't sure if they're doing something right, realize they need so much documentation that they get stuck, maybe have submitted and gone through part of the review process with B Lab and realize that they're actually not going to get to the certification, and they call us at that point. So we can start with a company at any point. And part of the reason I love this job is really to be an advocate for the B Corp movement. So we are always happy to get on a call, tell you all about it, no matter what you know, and no matter how likely you are to become B Corp certified, because the more people that know about it, the more they can talk about it. So please feel free to reach out and we can get on the phone with you, do a Zoom for half an hour, go through a slide deck on the details of certification and all of the benefits. And then you can help spread the word as well.
That's it. Well, that's a great segue in terms of spreading the word about this movement. What, in the time that you've been doing this, Jen, or as you're looking forward to the future and having more and more companies breaking well past that 1,700 number, what does the future look like for B Corp? Is this going to be something people are going to start including in their business plans? Or are there target numbers we're trying to reach as a country or, in industries? What does that look like to you?
Well, absolutely. The growth is beginning to be exponential. There's a huge backlog at B Lab. When I started this, it took 6 months for a company, once they submitted, to get through the process, sometimes a little bit less. Now it's taking 18 months. Because once you have filled out this questionnaire and submitted to B Lab, and now you have to pay a fee, there's such a long wait, because the number of applications really in the past year at one point the number was doubled. Now I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's tripled. There is huge demand for B Corp certification. I don't know if B Lab sets targets for numbers. They're growing as the need grows for certification. But one thing that I love about B Corp certification is that it is run by B Lab, that is not just looking at certification. They are about systems change. So they manage the certification, but they also work with governments and legislatures to get legislation passed to allow for what's called a legal status called benefit corporation. So you actually, as part of the certification process, you do have to make changes to your legal documents if you're an LLC, to identify that you are willing and going to be taking into consideration all stakeholders into your consideration versus shareholders. And if you're a corporation, you have to become what's called a benefit corporation. So they are leading the charge in that change. And that ties into broader systems change. They just announced a White House initiative for an inclusive economy office. Not exactly sure where that has gone, but they are working with the federal government to try to get an office within the White House to focus on stakeholder capitalism. They work with organizations focused on asset managers and how they should be thinking about this systems change to really drive our whole system to being more inclusive, to taking into consideration all stakeholders, moving away from the strict shareholder capitalism that our system operates
So it
under.
sounds like, it's inspiring. I'm just getting excited listening to you talk about it. So it sounds like this B Corp is not a rubber stamp. It's a movement. It is truly, a movement. And this isn't just about having one more credential to list on your company website, right?
Exactly. And integrity is incredibly important to them, which is why you have to make the legal change. Right now, while you can become certified, even if you don't achieve certain standards in every area, they are contemplating putting in place more strict standards. So say in diversity, you have to meet a certain level, or, in the environment, say in carbon neutrality, you have to meet a certain level. Whereas now there are certain things that you don't have to achieve everything, but they realize that really to avoid the issue of companies really being in breach of social and environmental impact, there are certain standards they have to set in place.
So, Jen, we've learned so much just in our time together, but it's free to get started. It's a great benchmark. Anybody, any company, any size, at any stage can sort of see where they are and figure out, where they are on the spectrum and where they want to go. If they need help, there are companies like you. And it's part of a huge movement that's growing exponentially. So it sounds like an amazing wave to be riding right now, and one that everybody should be considering.
That is a great summary. That's exactly right.
Perfect. But I'd like to just quickly turn the tables. I always like to sort of focus not just on what you do in your business, but your business. And, as a Haven member, as a business owner, as a business leader, Jen, what have been either challenges or, wins that you've faced, just sort of being a business owner, launching your own business? And has Haven played a part in that, perhaps?
Sure. Well, one of the challenges of being a certification consultant is that the certification is so broad. So it covers all of these areas that I've discussed in incredible depth. And there's no way to really become an expert in every area. So one of the challenges is when a client is really interested in an area that I or the consultant who's working with them is not an expert in, is learning about it quickly or in an in-depth enough way to be able to advise them on that. And so that is one way Haven can be very helpful, whether it's legal help or a specific environmental initiative. There are people within Haven who you can reach out to who may have expertise in a certain area. And that probably applies to any business owner. So it's just such an amazing community. And then on the win side, we have had at least 2 clients sign on because we met them at Haven. One of them hasn't started yet, so I can't say the name, but the other we have successfully brought through certification. The company is Athiva Ayurveda. And interestingly, we met them when I was presenting on investing in early March 2020. It was the last in-person event that happened that I've yet to be to at Haven. I've not been back there. I hope to go back soon. But, it's been incredible. I mean, it's really just such a great community that's helped us grow and develop our business.
I love that. There's been the give and the take in terms of you sharing your expertise as well as having the resources to help you on your journey. Jen, besides being part of the Haven community or us connecting with you by way of the Haven community, what are other ways? What are the best ways that listeners can find you or reach out to you?
Well, you can always email me at jen@impactgrowthpartners.com, but also follow us on LinkedIn or Instagram. We're always looking to provide relevant information on the B Corp movement, also interesting companies and things like that. So if you're interested at all in this space, I think you'll find interesting content on our Instagram as well as our LinkedIn page. And our website also has a lot of great information, and it goes into written detail on some of the stuff that I've discussed today.
Terrific. We'll make sure to include that in the show notes as well. Jen, thank you for your time. Thank you for telling us more about the B Corp process and your company Impact Growth Partners. We really appreciate you taking the time to share with the Haven Hubcast community.
Thanks so much. This was great. And I look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to the Haven Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders and owners are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Haven is a co-working space and virtual community located in the heart of Fairfield County, Connecticut. Haven is a hub for business owners and professionals to connect, create, and get stuff done. Find out more about the Haven community online at haven.com. That's HAYVN.com. Haven Hubcast is produced by Sound Advice Strategies.